Recording. Okay, and welcome everyone. This is our exhibition opening for our first Artists and Creatives exhibition. The theme of the call was in the year 2025. We've had, I think, 15 or so artists submit work. The format of what we're going to do is kind of just reintroduce the call, create a little bit of a context, and then I'll go through and show all the work, and any artists who are here can speak to their work. We'll sort of view it all together for for some time, and then have a conversation, kind of an open forum conversation rather than having, yeah, we're just gonna respond to the work as one would if we're in a gallery. Um, Try and just have it flow. So that's the plan. Christopher was gonna do a little recap, yeah?
Sure. And just, I guess I'll say, segue from what Christina was saying, two things that as Christina is going through the work, we're going to allow 2 minutes for each artist to speak about the work. And we're going to keep that on a timer, just so we can make sure that we have a robust amount of time on the back end to have engaging conversation, so we don't get into extended monologues. So 2 minutes on the artist review of the work, and then the framing for the conversation, to keep in mind as Christina's paging through the work and the artists are talking. If you want to take notes and along the dynamic of I see, I feel, I imagine, for the work and how it's hitting you and how you're responding to it. So the I see, I feel, I imagine is kind of today's prompts for initiating the conversation. And then just a recap on the theme of the call, and in the intention of it was, I think it really came in a conversation that Christina and I were having, and one of us had reframed the notion that it was now 2025 as, oh, we're in this, we just are finishing the first quarter of the 21st century. And the aha of that moment was, I don't know, for me, when I hear the first quarter of the 21st century, like it both encapsulates that the 21st century is passing us by very quickly, and there's something in that sounds very futuristic. For me, when I reflect on it, it's like, when I was an adolescent, the notion of the second quarter of the 21st century, we were going to all be flying around in bubble cars and living in domes and things like that. So the impetus was to really think about, are we in the future? Is this the future that we imagined? And as we progress into the second quarter of the 21st century, what are we imagining, and how can we as artists contribute to a deeper sense of being in the second quarter as we head into the second quarter of the 21st century. So that was the motivation of the call. And artists, as you talk through your work, if you want to talk about how you responded directly or indirectly to that would be fantastic.
Cool. Okay, so I'm gonna share screen and in no particular order, Beth. I put all the images into a slideshow. Can everybody see that?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yep.
I can. Yep.
Sure.
Okay. Okay, so I'm gonna just slowly, Beth submitted 3 images, so go ahead and tell us about the work you submitted, Beth.
Okay. Well, first apologies, Christine. I didn't get to send you the films. I do have short films about these projects, which I'm finding because my work as a social practice artist is so interactive that sometimes it's nicer to be able to see how it works with the public because everything, my work is really intended to create conversations and light bulbs and dialogue between people. And so this one is a series that I've actually been working on for 12 years, where I go out in public and I set up an easel and I scribe the Constitution with quill pens that I make. Basically, I sit there scribing, and people come up to me and ask me if they can buy one of those or if they're for sale. And I'm like, well, I'm trying to make sure democracy doesn't get sold out, which is exactly what's happening right now. And so I took a bunch of the bags. This is recent, in my moment of frustration of the news, and piled them all in and said, this is like what our Constitution looks like now. So all of those are hand scribed with quill pens that I make from feathers that I gather. And I recently had a residency in the month leading up to the election where I set up a Constitution Central and I basically scribed there with my full on patriot hat and vest and Ben Franklin glasses and my American flags everywhere and talked to people about civic engagement and empowerment and also how important the local elections were because I think that we're all feeling pretty dismayed and powerless and watching as the tech bros and the Republicans are basically stealing our country and everything that we hold precious. And my point that I wanted to make with this is that
That's minutes.
that's it. Okay, just I'll finish my sentence. Is that you can actually have power in local government, and also humor goes a long way. So I had to feature my kitty.
Thank you. Yes, thank you so much, Beth. Okay. Oh, this is Rita Leduc. She can't be here at this time.
Bummer.
Yeah, so these works were made, I'll just recap, as part of an art residency where she collaborated with a scientist on an ecosystem monitoring project. And the scientist was allowed to bring 2 sensors into the space. And one of the sensors was Rita. And I think that's a little piece of genius, that that artists are censors. And so these are works that it was a kind of maybe a salt marsh, or I'm not exactly sure where she said, but I'm not don't know the details. So I believe eelgrass and light and the various aspects of this natural environment that they're trying to understand and protect.
Hmm.
This was submitted to you, Christopher.
I would have to pull it up. I don't know.
David Howell Smith, or was that his
Yeah.
name?
Yes,
Yeah.
correct. Yeah, I don't know anything about the work other than what he captioned.
Okay. Yeah.
So
He submitted 2 pieces. This piece. That appears to be wood.
yeah,
This
that's what
is the same artist.
Yes, they were both David Howell Smith. And he says about this piece, this is an offshoot or extension of my symbiosis series. It involves rotating the repeating identical form to produce random effects. It could be images from a subcellular level, question mark.
Mhm.
He does not say what the medium is. No,
Okay.
that was 2 minutes on Rita and David.
Okay. Those are interesting. This is Belinda Schluber. I don't think she's here at the moment. She has this street installation, I think, near her home called the Little Art Gallery.
Mhm.
And as I understand it, she invites artists to create installations. And I have not had the chance to speak with her in detail about it, but there's the web page, the Deep Transformation Network page of hers describes each one a little bit, but this one is about there are moths in this one.
Moth
So
as canaries in a coal mine.
there you go.
Sensitive creatures changing in behavior to alert scientists to larger environmental changes.
Yes. Okay. Oh, it's me. So this is a recent collage. It's called Money, Sex, Power, Greed, Fame, War. And that is a phrase that came to me in a dream, and has stayed with me as I think emblematic of, patriarchy, I suppose. And um, so I've been collecting goddesses and the divine feminine and all sorts over um, recent years, and so this is my response to patriarchy, I guess. This is I've included a few from a series I did at a printmaking residency that are images of the embodied feminine and yeah, I'll just it's a stenciling technique using a printing press that I've gotten very interested in as because it creates these ghostly shadows
Hmm.
and layered images that are always surprising because you actually have absolutely no idea what's going to come out the other side, and they have a dreamlike quality that I really appreciate. And yeah, this is a few images from that series.
Ooh.
This is Rosalind Lowry. She's an Irish artist, and she, in this installation in Belfast, created a huge, this giant pile of animals who are facing extinction or are extinct. I'm not
Yeah.
recalling.
Endangered
Mhm.
481 endangered species list.
Yeah. And the installation was in this public space, and people were invited to take one as they walked past, and slowly the pile dissipated as people took these individual creatures. This is Peter Cameron. Peter, do you have anything you'd like to say, or does your quote speak for itself?
Yeah, thank you. I guess, quite confused about the whole. Um, I didn't know what work to put in because I wasn't quite sure what the purpose of this exhibition is, and in fact, who we are addressing. Art for me is about education, but when you don't know who you're talking to, it was a bit hard for me to present work. But anyway, I just put in a reflection, and we'll probably leave it at that, unless anyone can help me.
I think the intention was, well, you know, the Deep Transformation Network, to have that's our audience. They are those who are invited to view the work around this theme. So it's really just the self-selected folks in this community, which we do share. We share some understandings that I think are not necessarily commonly shared in the, you know, entire world. But that's as much as I guess as I can say to that.
Let's see, I'm on over here.
Thank you, Peter.
So Peter, am I on? Is this mic working?
Yeah, but we're going to have conversation toward the end. If you would like to just save a couple of any comments, we can discuss it later. Is that all right?
Yeah, I think it relates to the theme.
Cool.
Okay.
Oh, great. Yes. Yes. Okay. This is Emer, is it? How do I?
Yes, it is.
Yes. So, go ahead and explain the two pieces you submitted.
The first, that's just the one image out of a PDF of images that's really a retrospective right up into today. And it's based on the understanding that art isn't a commodified, elitist thing, that it's always been there. It's been part of human expression from as early as we could express, and that it's usually tied to expressions of what's sacred or to be communicated in community over time. So, for example, in my background, there's, you know, 5,000-6,000-year-old mounds that are carved with understandings that still are meaningful today. And I'm a bit of a Lucy Lepard fan. I think that all modern art is an overlay onto those ancient understandings. It's also why I think that art is something right now that we can use as sacred to face up against the profane, which is what I'd say we are facing right now, which is an utter disregard for the flow of life and for anything other than human-centric ego, power, possession, the sort of wounds of colonization is what I would call it. So that first piece is a PDF, which you can look at over time. This is a conceptual piece. It's a seed pod full of various kinds of seeds. It's my first podcast because I think the digital world kind of guts reality, and the reality of what's really there in the natural world is what will seed us and feed us. I think that's enough for now.
Great.
Thank you so much.
Ooh, nice.
This is Sana, yes?
I am actually a writer, novelist, writing lots of stuff. And I find it harder and harder to create narratives that make sense in a way. So I found out that the way I'm feeling about everything falling apart, that somehow making collages of trying to put things together in new ways, recreating the world or finding different ways of showing the entanglements on all kinds of levels is sometimes seems to be easier to do with the imagery than in narrative. So it's like somehow it's a relief for me to do that next to the writing. And this turned out to be actually, I made like 50 of them in a series. And then I made an exhibition and a small booklet with poetry too. And this was called Requiem for the Capitalocene. The whole series.
Mm.
And these had titles, but I guess they disappeared on the
Yeah, the titles are all in on the web page. I just didn't have a chance to include each one. I believe this is the last one. Oh, almost.
Sent you a bunch.
Yeah, they're wonderful.
Mm. Perfect.
That one. If we could rise up rooted, it's named after Rilke's.
Yeah, that wonderful book. Okay, this is Remedios Rappaport. Would you like to speak about your work?
Okay, I found the button again. Yes, here I am. That's the piece, Too Much, Too Much. And I got a new computer and it's not allowing me to do like the old one did. So I'm trying to, okay, look at this. And this one I can talk on. So it says in there, I don't know if you can read the reading, Too Much, inspired by George Harrison's lyrics and our consumerism image absorbed culture. It visually alludes to spinning motion with the yin yang of balanced opposites surrounded by golden energy. The words have opposite meanings depending on when and how said. It can be excessively grotesque or excessively fashionable or too much quantity of anything. So for me, the enjoyment of this piece was seeing how the same words can mean totally different things in different situations. And for what's coming up in our world, I think our consumerism and image absorbed culture is what's powering the economic system that's killing us and killing everything and ruining our time to enjoy life because we're not paying attention to other things. But anyway, and too much, like there's just too much going on and it's just too much. And, mentally, emotionally, and at what point do we break down and destroy the too much that George Harrison was talking about, which is more like overwhelmed with spiritual love. Okay, next one here, acro thinking, is pretty self-explanatory there. For empowering people to use their minds, creating solutions to the social, political, and environmental problems of today. And if you read it with the voice of a circus barker or somebody in vaudeville theater, which I am a part of the vaudeville theater circus movement here in the Northwest. And so, I read it like this: acro thinking, strong and flexible minds for healthy solutions to bend around the problems of today. Yes, these minds can reduce and control military madness.
Sorry.
You didn't, well, anyway, you read the.
All right, that was accidental. There we go.
Okay. Yes, these minds can clean up corporate and political criminals. Yes, these minds can stop invasion of your privacy by Big Brother and Big Biz. So there you go.
I like the sound effects. That's great. Thank you so much.
You bet.
Okay, so these are a few submissions by Taya, who can't be here at this time for our meetings, but she has several drawings. I think this one's called Even a Child Could Do This. Something like that. And she didn't include any descriptive text, so. This is Christopher's.
Yeah, so funny thing happened on my way to Sibey. So this piece is entitled Unfinished because it is literally unfinished. I had very different intentions coming into the call, and what I was attempting to achieve was, as I kind of alluded to in my intro, I was really looking at the dichotomy of where we find ourselves today, as opposed to this notion of what I thought about the future as an adolescent. And so that element never made its way to the work, because in the cycle of working, I do work in what here in the United States is typically referred to as diversity, equity, and inclusion work. I work for the school board, helping gather community to understand the levels of injustice and inequity that exist in our community. And as folks might know, the current administration has made that work. There was an executive order that made that work. I can't say illegal, because it legally isn't. It's not a law, but our work was in violation of this executive order, and for several weeks, it really impacted the communities that I work within, because a lot of folks that I work with have immigration issues as well, and so it very much distracted from my ability to create art. Became very fractured from the rest of what was happening in my life. And,
That's 2 minutes.
yep. And so unfinished it is.
As we all are. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you very much. Okay, Gordon. Gordon has a number of images. Would you like to?
So since there's no titles included, why don't we just run through, or I can read my piece and then do the titles as we go. So go back to the last one, please.
Okay, sure.
So this one's titled Ish River, Salish Sea, Qualia, Mindful. And so it's about bioregionalism and being connected to your region and place. Next, please. This one is Happy Place. This is a photograph of a mountain I went up to a year ago on the equinox in the North Cascades. Next. Dawn of Womankind and Wisdom Elucidates. So this is about the feminine regenerative powers in our world and the universe. Next. This is Cosmogonic Feminine Embodied Reciprocity. No, this is not the right one. Sorry. This is Ecology of Mind. There is no Garden of Eden. This one is Rocking Our Bodies of Water. Next. This is Cascadia Enchantment and the Barbaric Heart. Next. This is how do we live and how do we think and how do we do? Actually, I think I've reversed the ecology of mind and how we live. So anyway, they're all related. Yeah, this is out of order right now. So, and this one is dawn of womankind and wisdom elucidate. So yeah, this is out of the order that I submitted. So I'm just going to read my piece that I wrote. The issue is the anthropocentric state of life on Earth in the 2025 as one that produces massive widespread solastalgia, a place distress. This is a syndrome of distress produced by ecological change impacts on humans while they are directly connected to their homeplaceness. The deteriorated state of natural homeostasis is directly related to reciprocal to the decline of cultural homeostasis, resulting from a lack of integral self and collective reflection. Humans must re-enchant and re-enliven themselves in all creative art endeavors of any consequence will support and co-create a healthy transformation towards greater equanimity, eros, agape, and harmony on the Earth's natural relationships, rhythms, reciprocity, and symbiosis. My contributions in the year 2025 are a reflection on how biophilia is a salve for what ails us in these times and counters solastalgia through art, creativity, beauty, and authentic image making, countering all the patriarchal consequences of the Anthropocene. That's it.
Ooh,
Thank you, Gordon. Oh, one more?
So this is intervene and intra imago.
I think this was the last one here. Yes. Now this, let's see, I'm forgetting the name of the man who submitted it. Oh, Landon something. Sorry. I don't know him, but he submitted this collage.
Landon Tomlinson.
Yes.
Oops. Sorry.
All right. Is there any text that goes with it, Christopher? I can't remember.
This piece came out of a feeling of division, the projection of duality, and how extreme the poles of contrast are in present time. Beauty and the Beast. It is a collage.
Great. And then Yvonne.
Yeah, I was actually thinking a lot about what I think you and Christopher had mentioned regarding what we think of what 2025 would be. So I was kind of placing myself in the future a little bit. And I'm just going to read like Gordon did too, because I think the text goes with it. Our reality has been shattered, like trying to see through broken glasses. The once transparent becomes distorted. Light still comes through, yet many only see what they are told. What was our history, our home, and our heritage that was plain as day and somehow simply forgotten. Yeah. Through the wreckage of our constitutional democracy, I envision our world through the shards of our recent past. What mechanisms do we create to document the damage from the shock and awe barrage of broken truths? How can we piece together something we took for granted? I created a new lens, pieced together from the scattered bits of beautiful glass that once offered a clarity and confidence in that which was in front of me. I see today's message, pink, and am not taken. Together, we watch each other's backs. Together, we network to develop a new vision. My glasses become a historical artifact. So I just kept thinking a lot about how we are as a group of humans on this earth constantly, we take a lot of things for granted, even our democracy. And I think this is something that, you know, is really something that we are looking at more closely now, because it's being threatened. And I also thought a lot about something that we take for granted, like our glasses. And when they fall on the ground and if they shatter, you know, we immediately reach for them to try and see if we can still use them as glasses, even if they're cracked, you know, because we need to see. They are part of us. So this was an attempt at trying to imagine beyond 2025 and looking back at 2025.
Thank you. Okay. We are complete in our viewing. And I think we wanted to, again, kind of cast the frame of responding to the work from this like first person subjective. I see, I feel, I imagine, and we're really interested to hear people's responses and what to the individual works, to the intersection between them, to the overlaps, the gaps.
I think there's a lot of connection once you start seeing it in the light of the 2025 art call. Then we start seeing how different people are putting that together. For me, I just had a blast with AMR's podcast. Love it. I saw that and I was like, how much more in love can I be with that podcast? And then, you know, and then Sonneberg, you had I mean, all these compilations are very thought-provoking, and there's so much in each piece that I was like, I need to look at that even more deeply. And the in Remedios, I saw this, first of all, the performance when you talk about your is it acro, I forgot what the piece is, the acro, the piece you had there, I forgot what it was called, but your performance was part of the art, for sure. How much is too much, you know, at what point do we destroy, all of that was really pretty amazing. There's just a lot. And biophilia as salve, was that you, Gordon? I think you talked about biophilia as a salve, and I'm like, yes. I mean, that's something that I think we can all connect with, and certainly we are all hungering for that. Yeah, so there's just a lot in everybody's pieces here that I just thought there was so much to that, you know, we can connect with, and I certainly did.
I really felt the sense of entanglement that Sana was talking about. Yeah, that idea of just being able to spend more time with those images and try to unpack them a little bit or feel into them more. With the getting below words or beyond words, like that was very palpable.
It's that entire symbolist heritage that she's connecting to. Having just been to Paris a few weeks ago, there's just so much there. You can just have you can spend your entire life really researching that kind of artwork. But there's so much just packed in to the numerous types of definitions that we've given and really empowered each image to become. And then to have those images go into the piece. that's a lot. I mean, it's like a super dense, pithy little two-dimensional image. But there it is, like, you know, super dense material. And so that's, I think it's kind of important to have. Again, it's a kind of symbolic art.
Mm.
And I also
I
really,
love-
I felt the Gordon used the word reenchantment, and I had a strong feeling of that in seeing his work, because I don't know, just I guess, you know, perhaps it's the like that, you know, as Jeremy would say, the pattern making instinct, the symmetry, but difference. I don't know. There was something about that felt very biological, and yeah, that idea of reenchantment, reconnecting with the living world before we broke it into
Yeah, thank you.
straight lines and mechanical pieces.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a question for Christina. The first image you shared of your work, what was the writing behind all the women images, female images?
Money, sex, power, greed, fame, war. It's, yeah, it's just this, it arrived as a word and it remains a word that I want to work with some more.
So say it again, I'm sorry.
Money, sex, power, greed, fame, war.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, yeah.
So that's addressing basically the imbalance of like patriarchy versus the feminine in the world as we experience it.
Yeah, I think so. I may continue covering that collage until there is no more of that underlay.
Okay.
May have to be completely subsumed.
So that's what I saw, were layers and layers, underlay, overlay, and connection in all of the pieces. It's very interesting. I only trust people who are creative. If I know somebody who's just intellectual and they don't have that creative piece, I just don't trust them as much. It's very strange, but I think it's because the flow of life comes through. The appreciation of the flow and the current of life comes through in creative work in a different way. And what I loved being part of this, and I'm very honored to be part of it, is that I can see that in each of the pieces in very different ways, right from the 2-year-old that Tia reveals in her pieces to the very sophisticated symbolism and Brueglian, you know, layers and levels in some of the other pieces, and the Rorschach type liveliness and color in the more kind of biophilic pieces. I really enjoyed this as an experience. It's very nice. I'm sitting in Costa Rica, and if I look out my window, I can see, you know, birds and monkeys and extraordinary ocean and mountains. And yet there's also the hunger for what humans actually can do when they take that in and then bring it through their own experiences and put it out again. I love that. I love that. Thank you. Thanks for being part of it. It's lovely.
I have a question. Someone who I'm not acquainted with, if I say this right, Sant in Copenhagen. How do you say your name?
Sanne Bjerg. It's my first name and my last name put
Oh,
into one. That's why.
Okay. So I thought your collages were really complex, and so I'm curious if they're photo collages or you create them through hand cutting of images.
Hand cutting. It's
Wow,
yeah.
the old way.
What did you say?
Like the way we all used to do it by cutting out images from sources. Okay.
Yes, I found out a couple of years ago that all the books and National Geographic magazines and everything that I had collected
Yep.
were dying, and so why not just cut it up in a million pieces and put the world together again? So
Right.
it's very important for me that it's manual and not on the screen.
Yeah, that's how I used to do it.
The limitations of what material do I have, and
Right.
how can I actually make it fit together, even if it's different in the proportions, etc. So these limitations are like the framework. To me, if I did it digitally, I would be like overwhelmed by the endless
Sure.
possibilities, and then I get lost. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's why I was curious. So, but they're really well done. Very.
Thank you. So your collages are digital or photo?
You're asking me?
Yeah.
So I use collage in painting. So so it's a mixed media process. So yeah, and now I do cut out things, but now I've digitized, and so I work on things in the computer, or I scan things, or I find images or take my own photographs. And the great thing about the computer is I can just make it fit the composition easier. Where in the old way, when you're cutting something out, it doesn't always fit the scale of the work. But anyway, you know what I'm talking about. But so now I'm using media, different types of ways to do the collage. But the artwork is a combination of a lot of paint with collage elements in it. Yeah.
Yeah, because it didn't look digital. It just looked like it was more advanced than what you could do by hand. So I like the effect that you make it.
Well, thank you. Yeah. And so my idea is that juxtapositioning collage with the paint, I try to eliminate that the collage can actually be seen, like the edges, and so it's very integrated into the painting composition. So.
I have a question which has to do with difference, I don't know, the role of performance and public engagement relative to, a more, I suppose, static work. So I feel like I sort of struggle with this myself a little bit, feeling like I maybe should have like this sort of public role as an artist who wants to affect change. And I wonder if folks who do more public engagement, I don't know, wanted to engage a little bit around that, like what's the role of art?
I have a big struggle with that because I feel like I do too much concern about public engagement and sharing these ideas. And my studio practice just has evaporated to practically nothing. And it feels awful to not actually be making new work. And yet, since my work is, I see each piece as an actor in a theater show, and the whole thing is about the show and getting the show out there. And right now, for this year especially, I've proclaimed it's showtime. We need to go out there and engage. But I'm really pleased that I actually finished another physical painting about the beauty in the Olympic National Forest in my Sacred Earth Holy Water series. And I feel like in a lot of ways, what I'm trying to say is to protect the earth and the integrity of life on earth. So painting about that and sharing that is maybe more important than all these other things like, yes, these minds can, I get really confused, overwhelmed, and then it's, oscillating between inspiration, depression, and I'm not sure if what I'm doing is the best way to go either.
Right. Yep.
I'm thinking a lot these days about the different people who have made these sort of circles of ways you can be an activist or ways you can involve yourself in change. Like some people are creators and some people are this and that. And I've tried to lean into that in a way and say that there's so many ways we can influence what is going on, and we have to find a way that is in accordance with our skills and our energy and abilities and everything, in order not to, because I was for a long time sort of pushing myself to say it has to be something that directly creates change, and it's like I have no idea what will create any change or how I could influence anyone to change their minds or anything. So to me, I'm like thinking more, I also need to make art for myself. That's my sort of my I think of it as the metabolism of the mental ecosystem to do the art. And then actually, if I do enough, I get the energy to involve myself in activism in the other fields where I feel competent. For instance, trying to make people leave big tech is what I'm very active in these days. So I think I have to sort of compartmentalize and say it's not all the art that I'm doing that has to be have a goal, because sometimes it seems to kill the artistic or the impulse to go somewhere where the creative ideas want to go, if I have already put sort of the demand that it has to be something that can be activist or working in public spaces.
Now that's interesting, Sana. I think I'm in a liminal space trying to get to where you are, because I've allowed my activism to overtake my art practice, but I'm really, as my piece is unfinished, I'm really trying to get to a point like you're describing where it's not only a time and energetic balance, but it's how does that activism actually influence my work historically? Historically my work very much kind of spoke to what I wanted it to say, as opposed to it being informed by external factors. And so I love hearing how you've bridged that. It's a challenge.
I was very, very touched by your piece here and the story around it, that it's so much in the situation in the present that it's unfinished for a very particular reason, and that to me makes it a really great work that touched me, because to me I mean, I'm sitting here on the other side of the ocean, and I'm like looking at the States, and so seeing that work as a representation of that situation with the DEI is like, oh yeah, this is what it is. So it becomes a very strong work in a way that makes it the thing real. To communicate exactly what's going on.
Yeah.
So I'm a community art researcher. So I work the other way around. When I got stuck in academia, don't know why I got there, but when I got stuck in doing it, I didn't want to work alone. I didn't think my ideas alone were the way to go. So I wanted to learn about trauma and change for the usual reasons, having enough of it in my own background, that I did a community art installation with about 36 other women at the time. And what came out of that, out of the individuality of those pieces and the intersecting themes in those pieces, including my own, really became the groundwork, bedrock for my own understandings around trauma and transformation. So And I'm continuing to do that now that I'm free of academia completely. I'm going back to Ireland this May, and I'm doing a community art research project really around ancestors. Because in Ireland, you know, because of the colonization stuff, ancestors are just dead people rather than the soil being the soil that the bones of our ancestors compose, that are we're from. So trying to get people to re-engage with that sense, that long historic sense, both the wounds and the resilience, is the piece I'm trying to get at. So I'm going back to do that again for the first time in about 15, 20 years, to go back and begin to do the art space. It's fascinating because there's no way to predict. You can't have a hypothesis or something. You don't know what you're going to get, what's going to come out of that collective intelligence that a community brings together. And to me, that's what's exciting. And the very process itself is transformative. Like if you're making that stuff, it's going to change you. So to me, that's kind of, it integrates what I do. So.
I could add something here. I hope what I have to say will kind of put you all at ease around this dialogue about doing activist work and social practice work and making objects and all of that. And in that, I really feel that every single thing that I do in the world, even if it's, you know, taking care of something in my family, I'm doing it as an artist. I'm showing up as an artist. I'm showing up as a leader, as an artist who is a leader, as I'm modeling for myself, but for others also, about really looking at the world as an artist and the delight and the wonder that we take, as well as the creative ways that we can approach any problem. I assume my place at the table as an artist and as a leader and as a woman wherever I go. And I just feel that the whole internal dialogue that we have around, if don't have my paintbrush in my hand, I'm not really being an artist, is really a result of capitalism, and that we are workers who are meant to be making products to be sold. And that's how the world sees us. You know, and you can see that in just the way that when I say I'm an artist to somebody, they go, "Oh, do you paint or do you sculpt?" And I'm like, "Yeah, all of that." Where do you sell your work? Not the point.
Right.
So what I want to ask each of you to do to kind of work through that process of this full integration of showing up as an artist, leader, activist, and seeing no difference between them, is to really ask yourself, what do I really, really, really want to with my art? And write down the first thoughts that come to you over different times, and see what keeps showing up. And I'll give you a clue that for me, I did this for quite a while, and eventually it was just like, really all I want is the conversation. I want wherever I go for there to be a connection, for people to have, for me to feel a sense of belonging, for other people to have a sense of belonging, and for that to happen through that connection and through conversation. And if my art does that, great. If my activism does that, great. If my leadership does that, even better. So, and just being a good person in the world. So I hope that puts you all at ease on this particular discussion.
Yeah, I'll second what Beth is saying exactly. I think it's really important. Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
I think part of my curiosity around this question really has to do that what I really want with my art really always turns inward, right? It's always about a deeper relationship with myself, and I'm getting clearer on that too. Like I'm not as interested in the outward expression of it. It's more about the internal relationship. And so that, like, holding the fact that that is true, and also, okay, so where does that leave me in terms of this you know, how my work relates to the world or to change or to, you know, the relationship between inner change and outer change. Like that's just a very live question for me because it always just turns right back to
Yeah.
inner process.
So what relating to what Beth just shared and then what you just said is I think you shared on DTN with me and others that you had ordered Susie Gablick's book, Conversations Before the End of Time, which is exactly related to what we're talking about, how Susie Gablick has these conversations with some incredible people. And I've reread that book probably 3 or 4 times because it's so good and it's so refreshing. And it brings this to the point is that the I think one of the things that objectives that I think we want to do here is to bring how to the DTN especially because there's so much written language, so much so many words. The way we communicate through the work we're doing is not it's a different language that is still very valuable and sort of brings us changes the way our brain and our minds work with everything else that's going on. So 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 I think how we bring what we do to both our community locally and then through this network that we're on is a smorgasbord of, you know, just keep sharing it and hopefully. So my question is, will the rest of DTN be able to see this artwork and see it exhibited in a way that allows them to explore this territory with us? And then how do we sort of enlarge that envelope within this network and then beyond? So anyway.
Yeah, I mean, so the page is now there and available for everyone, and I will certainly be, you know, trying to encourage the general populace to check it out. Yeah, it's a challenge to connect with folks who don't necessarily think of themselves as artists or creatives, and then, you know, are often more willing to view others' work. But then, yes, anyway, this connection is challenging. But yes, the pages are visible, the pages are available. And it would be great to have that broader conversation.
I have an idea that maybe if you put a little promo thing up on the all topics thing or several different spaces in DTN is to promote it with the idea of, you know, enjoy a visual conversation, you know, for a change, or somehow engage people in the idea of things we've talked about, that the artwork and the visions communicate into a conversation in a different way than words. Come check it out and enjoy, you know, something like that.
Yeah, no, that invitation's out there. And so now the work is available and people don't have to come to our meetings to view it. They can check it out anytime.
I thought that what Gordon said about the sort of being able to make that part of a larger conversation, you have this recorded, correct?
Yes.
So that the particular phrasing that he used was very succinct and invitational, and it might actually, since it's coming out of our live conversation, it might be a good invite to the larger group, given that we've just had this, to put it up and invite them not only to look, but to start contributing themselves, because that's the piece, eh? If you don't count yourself as an artist or a creative, then you don't think to actually allow yourself the fun and the excitement of putting a piece in.
Yeah, I was glad that we had some contributions from folks who we hadn't really connected with before. So that was
great.
Great outcome. Yeah.
I really like those questions that Christopher put out, that what do I see, what do I feel, what do I imagine?
Yeah.
And I think one of the biggest problems with the wider population around art and engaging with it is that it makes them feel stupid because they don't really know how to engage with it. And nobody wants to feel stupid or like, oh, I'm not an artist. That's your thing. We'll just leave that to you all, you know? And so maybe you could turn it into a dialogue by asking those questions and let them know really from our hearts how important it is for us to be able to hear and get that feedback. So would you please be willing to participate in some way and to start to create a dialogue with them so they have a reason to come, so they feel that it matters to somebody that they were there to see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's actually
Excellent.
something I was going to share, and I think I've mentioned before in previous gatherings about I've done here in Seattle and over 30 years with a group every month. But I call it an open dialogue circle. And what you do is you know, instead of showing like multiple images from each artist, maybe you just show one, and then you allow the audience, the participants, to ask questions of the artist directly, as opposed to us just reeling off our monologues, or allow them to engage us in a way that brings them in more. And I think this is a really important part about our culture in Western world, where people have lost touch with how to interact with the artist and the art. And I haven't done this in a while, but we would have open studios and people would just come in and be able to interact with us directly. And it's an incredibly rewarding experience. I mean, it's not just about selling the artwork, it's about actually building the community in different ways. Yeah.
Right. And I have to, Beth credited me with, I see, I feel, I imagine, and I have to pass along that credit to Anne, who is also on the call here, that she reflected on that in a lead up to this call. So.
Sorry, actually, I'm sorry, I'm on the train, but it's actually Anna Halprin's aesthetic response.
Oh, there you go. There is a source.
So I'm going to have to leave, and I look forward to seeing you all and talking more in the near future.
Thank you.
Thanks.
We're going to wrap up in a minute. I just wanted to see if anybody who hasn't had a chance to talk yet had anything to offer.
I'm going to add a couple of comments thinking about that larger dialogue and the idea of populating it a little bit at the beginning with responses to I see, I feel, I imagine. While I found it really interesting to look at the work today, I found it was rolling so fast that I couldn't do that kind of response to individual work before the next work was coming up. But for example, I mean, when Beth's work was up first, that provoked in me a response of, I see truth telling, and I feel grateful that it's out in public, and I had that same response. I don't remember the artist's name, but the one who did the 481 endangered animals, that communicated to me that message of, well, we're the ark, we humans are the ark now as we pick up and bring each of those species into the very interiority of ourselves. And I was thinking about Yvonne's comments, if those of us who wear glasses, you have a mishap and the frame gets shattered or the glass gets shattered, and still we pick them up and go, can we still see, to like a few of these responses that were either spoken by artists today as work was shown, or were spoken in response to work, or that you add in a little bit later, that there's already a visible dialogue when you put this recording up and it has the link to the full gallery. I think then it's much less intimidating for anybody to step into. And I wanted to come back to your comment, Christina, yourself, about your your work going inward, because today had not only this in my day, but it had a couple of hours at dawn going through the work of Hannah Barron and her work from 1969 to 1987. And Sana might be familiar with this because, you know, Hannah Barron worked totally with fragments and piecing them together and then boxes. And she comes out of it just has a tremendous amount of pain in her life from being a child who lived through Kristallnacht and had her, you know, watched her father beat to near death, etc. But the very interesting thing to me in her work is that all of her darkest work is, and she says this very clearly, come out of her times of greatest inner strength. All of her times of greatest despair and losing hope are the most colorful works. And that was so expressive to me, you know, of art making being attention to the flow of life, you know, like how do you open to life and bring it in during times of despair? And how do you increase your capacity to bear with or to see, and let that darkness appear in the work at times of strength. So it was just interesting to have both of those things in this day today for me, you know, of appreciating how art making done almost 100% in private can be so conducive to the flow of life and allow us to show up more. I mean, I love, Tasana, with your work, that quiet, solitary work of being a novelist, you know, suddenly takes visual form, you know, and becomes more public more immediately. So thank you today for chance to bear witness to so much.
What was the name of that artist? I didn't know the name, I think.
Hannah Lore, Hannelore is the first name. And is Baron, Baron.
Okay.
I'll put it in the chat now.
Sounds good. It
Thank
just
you.
reminded me of a quote that has inspired me the last couple of months. And I don't know if it's Giorgio Agamben or it's Primo Levi, or Agamben quoting Primo Levi, or and I didn't read it in English, but it's something like being a witness can sometimes be what motivates you to survive in the camps. From the war. And to me, that was really because I've been for a while and saying, okay, it's too late to tell all the stories to prevent disaster, and then to change my sort of perspective and saying, but anyway, being a witness is also a way to be in the present, and maybe actually it's my only way to endure being in the present, to not imploding in despair, to say, okay, it makes sense to write it all down, to put it all together, and to try to be a witness of the absurdities that are going on and as, like you say, in a way, to take the pain in and let it move through me and get out in some ways that maybe don't make sense to anyone else, but that to accept and acknowledge that it still makes it possible for people.
Sort of interesting. We're having this meeting here, and you know, I've got myself spread between 2 or 3 different communities up and down the west coast of the United States. I just get an email in, and I'm looking at it. It's from another artist and community up in the Port Townsend area of Washington, and her conversation about, you know, how does painting make a difference? And she's talking about all these things that we're talking about. So that whole thing of it's reassuring to see so many people engaging in a conversation that's related. And in that sense, it gives me that positive feeling of, you know, a new world is being born. And let's make it a wonderful one with great communication about these things that haven't been looked at or need to be looked at. I don't know. I just thought it was interesting.
There was some time back, and I'm sure many of you may already know this, but it's something about like how art is the antidote to like destruction or something like that. I don't remember exactly what the quote is, but there's something about that when it's connected to making things with historical connection. Because one thing that is missing, especially with these authoritarian kind of minds, non-critical minds, they are kind of ahistorical. They don't have I guess it's like they haven't learned the lessons. They weren't living on the same planet in some ways. But to bring back or to be the collectors of historical things that have occurred in our during our human civilization, there are things that we have learned. And I think as artists and as makers and creators, it's almost like that is the activism. The activism is that we must, bring what we have learned through our studies of histories, through our studies of almost anything, science and what we've learned about indigenous knowledge and farming and materials. I mean, there's so much we've learned, and we really need to bring that forward. And it's almost like in some ways we can't escape being activists. And so the voice, I understand the issue with the voice. I have no problem speaking for others in my past career as a marketing person. I don't always want to put myself as the person speaking, but I can actually take on somebody else's face and speak, and now I have to just kind of speak as myself or as the artist. And in some ways, we have to, I guess that's the job. I don't know.
What is Maury Dane doing? I can see her. What's she got to say? Oh.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So I missed a lot of it. I'm sorry. I was in a rehearsal and in transit now, but I really enjoyed looking at the work this morning when I saw it come up, and just meeting you all through the work was just wonderful. Like, it felt like the first real encounter with you all. And that's what I have to say.
Oh.
That's wonderful. Thank you. Well, I think we're going to probably wrap it up. And I like the idea of artists being met through their artwork, right? That's how we want to be met, I think. And just thank you all for coming to our session and contributing work if you did. And we look forward to further conversations in the DTN, and let's keep, you can submit more work if you'd like, or get other people to do the same. Make it a lively space, and continue the conversation.
Great.
Thank you, Christina.
Thank you, Christine.
Thank you,
Okay.
Christina. This
Thanks,
is the kind
everybody.
of stuff I like. This is what I hope would happen with this group. This is awesome.
Great.
Great.
Thank you. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, thank you.
Take care.
Bye.